I am Wendell B. Harris Jr., and you are listening to The World is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about
Wild Indian. I don't know if I got that right. Anyway, welcome to The World is Wrong, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films and film artists the world is wrong about. I am one of your hosts, and my name is Andras Jones.
And I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Brian Connolly.
And together we are here to round out our weeks of Noscaring.
Yeah.
Celebrating one of my picks for Noscarist Film of the Year, Wild Indian, from director Lyle Mitchell Corbine Jr. First-time writer-director. He's directed shorts and other things, but this is his first feature. A film that I just sort of stumbled across. I didn't see any promotion for it.
Me neither.
Just sort of found it in a back alley somewhere. I was like, oh, check this out, and was blown away. Turned you on to it.
Yeah.
You had a similar
Also
response?
blown away. This is prime Noscar material, this movie.
Yeah. So why don't we just play a clip from the film, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers.
How are you, Mrs. Wolf? I was sorry to hear about your condition here. Seems like you know who I am.
I do.
I know that Teddo was spreading lies about me. I got cops banging on my door. It isn't fun.
That's on you.
Well, I'm here to clear my name with you. I felt like you needed to see in person that I am not who Teddo said I was. In fact, I was a friend of your son. I was as shocked as anyone that he disappeared.
I only know what Teddo told me.
What did he say?
You shot my boy in the face. You didn't feel anything. You buried him like a fucking dog.
Teddo was mentally ill. It would be a mistake to believe anything that he had to say. The guy was in and out of prison for 25 years.
That don't mean anything.
Yes, it does. It means everything. I'm somebody now. The only thing Teddo ever did was start fights and sell drugs and kill your fucking son.
Help! Oh.
Shut up.
Oh.
Stay right fucking there. Why should I be punished for your transgressions? You're the reason James is dead. I've seen him coming to school, all bruised up, crying around like all the other native kids. People used to say you just forgot him somewhere because you were drunk.
That ain't the truth.
It is true. I was just like him. Do you know who my parents were? Yeah. You do. It's not my fault Indians are a bunch of fucking liars and narcissists. We are the descendants of cowards. Everyone worthwhile died fighting.
Wild Indian is a native noir, the story of a murder on the reservation that unfolds as the tale of generational trauma through the lives of Makwa and Tedo. Makwa, who pulled the trigger, Tedo, who helped Makwa cover it up as children. Makwa is now Michael, married to Kate Bosworth, working for Jesse Eisenberg, and there is something almost Chameleon Streetish about his life as a successful token in the white world. But it's a dark film, as befits a noir, with a strain of satire that I feel like reveals itself on multiple watches, perhaps similarly to a film like The Believer, that is not a comedy, but has a very knowing sense of humor, I'm putting heavy quotes around that, about dark things that just comes from an intimacy with that material. That's Wild Indian. It's a really powerful watch. We're going to be talking about how it is. And if you're about to ask me how the world is wrong about this film, I think it's just simply that it hasn't received any promotion as far as I'm aware.
How did you find out about this movie?
Well, like I said, I frequent some dark alleys in the on the cinematic internet, and occasionally, just things flow past my window in a certain way, and sometimes they grab me, and I feel like I think the listeners to the podcast may have gathered that I am particularly interested in cinema that explores the indigenous people of North America and their experience in ways that are less obvious or more honestly coming from the people in that world and from native voices, from indigenous voices. And this film just snuck up on me. I saw the title. I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll check this out. And at every turn, it delivered there's a Coen Brothers kind of feeling to some of it. That's where I got the comedy. Yeah. Like there's this Midwestern sort of stoic point of view on tragic events. Just like there's weird moments of comedy that come from Michael slash Makwa's experience with Jesse Eisenberg as his boss.
Yeah.
There's a scene in a hospital where he is very cruel to a woman in a hospital bed that made me think of Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, the scene with Nicolas Cage and the old ladies in that scene. Not a funny movie. And like these are the humor is very bleak, but you could also feel like there's something about making a bleak movie like this. There's something that I can feel the director leaning into the machinery of the movie he's created. He has this very stoic main character. Let's talk. Maybe let's walk through the film a little bit, because my description kind of leaves out a lot.
And we're gonna spoil some things, so definitely watch this first. I was able to find it on Stars, so go to Stars, watch Wild Indian, then come back and listen, because there was a few little, twists and turns in here, because we are in kind of noir territory. So watch the movie, because we're going to spoil it.
So one thing about this film is it's bookended by a story that takes place in the post-European invasion of the North Americas with an Ojibwe man who gets sick and wanders west. And it looks like he has smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this native man trudging through the wilderness. And sorry, it's so funny. When we were initially going to do this, I was really thinking of it in terms of Old Henry. Both movies start off with a person alone in nature. And in this case, it's this Ojibwe man wandering west with smallpox all over his face and speaking a voiceover. And then we immediately cut to the 1980s, and we're following these one particular native kid played by Phoenix Wilson as the young Makwa. And he is a really intense young actor.
Oh, yeah.
From the second you see him, he is like, there's just something off. And if you see pictures of him, he's a handsome, young actor. And the feeling when you're watching it is they found just some really messed up kid and put him in this movie. But that's a great performance. And we follow him and his best friend, the young Tedo, played by Julian Gopal, who seems like a much more well-balanced and down-to-earth kid who kind of is taking care of the young Makwa character. He's like the only one who will be his friend. We learn that he is being abused by his, I don't know if it's his father. I think it's his mom's boyfriend. Is that you kind of the sense you get? Did you get that sense as well?
For Makwa?
Yeah.
I thought that was his dad, but I couldn't tell. I read that as his father, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Something about the way that the mom was portrayed made me think that it like he had the sense of being betrayed by her for this new guy. But again, point is, there's this kid. We're introduced to his world on these multiple levels of abuse. We still have this Ojibwe man with his smallpox given to him by white settlers as an ancient strain of trauma and abuse. And then we have this modern, very present strain of abuse, which is this father figure beating up the young Makwa and teaching him violence while he's at school and just having to hide his blows. And interestingly, another connection with Old Henry, Scott Haze plays the Catholic priest in Wild Indian. He also plays the sort of mysterious wounded outlaw in the film Old Henry. So he's some more connective tissue between these films. And you see that the Makwa character, Tedo, is teaching him how to fire a rifle for hunting and for shooting targets. But in a moment of blandly rendered violence, Makwa shoots a kid that we've seen him eyeing weirdly, mostly because the kid seems like he has a pretty good life as compared to Makwa. The girl that Makwa likes this kid. We see Makwa looking in on his house, and he has a loving relationship with his mother. And he just shoots this kid. And let's stop here for a second. I've watched it twice. You've watched it once. Do you want to talk about your experience of that scene?
It's a little confusing at first because you don't really know who he shot exactly. Like at first I thought that one of the two friends shot one of them. I was just like kind of like, who's got shot? And it's just done kind of in the way of like someone would shoot an animal in the woods, like there's nothing ceremonious about it. There's nothing big about it. It just kind of happens. It's a very cold death, and then it kind of comes out of nowhere. You don't, because you really expect for the first half hour of this movie that he's going to kill this guy abusing him, like his dad or mom's boyfriend, or whatever. You think like it's going to lead to that is going to be where the noirish elements seep in, or the big secret. But instead, it's like this total, unrelated to the drama character in a way. And so it's really surprising when it happens. You're like, oh shit, I didn't expect them to just kill some other kid. And then you really think he's going to keep going and kill Tedo, because Tedo gets really scared and he's hiding, because Tedo just sort of has the right reaction of like, oh, this is terrible. What the hell's going on? I need to get away from this. And so you think, oh, is this going to be the second kid who's going to die? But a much worse thing happens to Tedo than dying. He has to live with this secret his whole life. Which is worse than death. And then that kind of kickstarts the second part of the movie, which is these two characters dealing with the secret of kill. Because they kill the kid, they bury him unmarked, and basically Makwa's like, you can never tell anyone this happened. Like, this is a secret. Like, if you tell people, like, your cousin... Because Tedo and Makwa are cousins. It's like, if you tell me, like, your cousin goes to jail forever, like, I'm done. And just like, I didn't mean to, I shot him, whatever. Like, we just need to, this is just between the two of us. And they kind of make a deal. And then we kind of, soon after that, cut to, like 40 years later, 35 years later. And the way we get into the modern world is great. And I feel this is when some of the humor comes in. Is it okay if I'm explaining this part a bit?
Yeah. Go for it.
It's like you cut guys, like you have this part of, in the past, this guy with smallpox, then you have this part in the 80s, which feels like a very, like the brutal drama. And then you cut to a beautiful, sunny golf course. And you see a guy playing golf, like, and usually your mind goes to like, this is a privileged man playing golf. And, you basically then we're following Makwa now, in his, 40s.
As Michael. Now he's Michael.
As Michael. He's changed his name to Michael. He's playing golf. He has a beautiful blonde wife played by Kate Bosworth. They have a child. They live in this sort of like very IKEA-looking modern like condo. I don't even think it's a house. It just looks like a fancy condo or something. Maybe it's a house. And then he just works... sort of, I like in charge of some kind of one of those big companies that does dealings with things you don't quite understand. There's a lot of merging and like the meeting and this client, and Jesse Eisenberg works with him, and there's this amazing scene where Jesse Eisenberg wants to talk work, and Michael just wants to talk about like, is my braid too long? Is my ponytail too long? Like, should I make this shorter? And he can't stop talking about it. And Jesse Eisenberg's character, Jerry, very confused as to why this man's obsessing over his braid.
Well, can I actually, let me jump in a little bit, because that's where I really got the
definitely. Oh yeah,
there. Yeah. It's not just that he's confused that this guy is asking about his braid. You see how Michael is topping Jesse Eisenberg from the bottom, as you might say, and like he's Jesse Eisenberg's subordinate, but he is using his nativeness to totally dominate Jesse Eisenberg, because by asking him this question that is really an inappropriate and weird question to ask, but Jesse Eisenberg doesn't feel equipped to respond that way, so he's trying to respond in a sincere way, which only makes him more fumbly and weak, and Michael stronger and stronger. And this is something, and it's funny, but it's also something that I didn't even really notice the first time because I'm so shocked by the murder. But what happens after the murder is that it's the first time we see that young actor, Phoenix Wilson, all of a sudden, the next time we see him, his bruises are gone. He's walking down the school hallway with a confidence that we hadn't seen before. And something about committing this murder has made him into the strong one when he was the weak one before. And something about that lesson is being expressed in the Jesse Eisenberg, that he's learned to become to somehow, again, it's the chameleon street trick. He's learned how to somehow take what would be his handicap in this setting and turn it into a strength by, honestly, just kind of by his chutzpah and sociopathy. Like the combination of his just audaciousness, like that scene about the braid, and his deadness to compassion for anyone in his life. And then after the scene with Jesse Eisenberg, then we go and he has this scene with his wife where he just has a very odd relationship to his child. And when she tells him that she's pregnant, you can see him having the sociopath's response of, oh, this is a good thing. Okay. Oh, this is the human response. Okay, now I go over and put my arm around you. But
and then you compare that to the scene with him in a strip club where he asks the stripper if he can like choke her, and he goes in the back room and basically almost kills her. And you're just getting just window into this sociopath's life, you know, just sort of this guy who committed this murder as a child, who had a horrible childhood, is now kind of like this emotional robot. And clearly he's dealing with this past in a very odd, very disturbing way. Like, it's a really great character, the Makwa/Michael. And the fact that, like, you would commit this thing and you hide in plain sight, be becoming more successful, more, you know, around people, like you're rich now, like you have meetings with people, you have this beautiful model looking wife, like, yeah. And it's really interesting. And then compare that to, then the movie takes you to the other character, Tedo, and what's going on with him at the same time. Played by the, like, brilliant, what's the first name? Chaske Spencer.
And we should also say that Makwa is played by Michael Greyeyes.
Brilliantly.
I believe that's...
So now we're following Tedo around, who has had the opposite. So even though he's the one who didn't commit to murder, his life is the most wrecked because he is not a sociopath, and he has gone in and out of jail, dealing with drugs. He's got like face tattoos. He's just a very, very damaged man. And the present day begins with him getting released from jail and going back to the hometown, going back to his family, going back to the world. And that part is so good. And he is such a good actor. And just kind of going through just, you know, like normal stuff for a while. Just him sort of like living with his sister and trying to connect with his nephew. And, you know, where's his job going to be? And you're just kind of following around this guy, and it's so good, and it's just like such high drama, like it's in the best way of just like, this is some good reality, like good down to earth acting, where it just feels like you're just really watching this guy's life for like 20 minutes.
I read an interview from the director, and he was saying he'd worked on the script for like 6 years, and it started out, it was really just about a native guy who left the reservation and got a job in California, and a cousin comes out to see him and is really annoying and embarrassing to him. And at some point it turned into this much, to this crime drama. And I think it's a great evolution. And when you watch this scene, you can sort of, when you play out play the two characters off of each other. And I feel like that, like in a way, like, if you started making the movie and you're like, okay, I want it to be about Makwa, but at some point the Tedo character just keeps stealing the movie, and I feel like that's what happens here, and it works really well because we're introduced to Makwa's Michael as, like, everything about him reads, don't be afraid of me. I'm someone you can trust. I'm playing golf and talking about my braid with Jesse Eisenberg, but as we go deeper into it, and by the time we get to the point with him choking the stripper, we have realized, oh, this guy is dangerous. Whereas with the Tedo character, we're introduced to him, and we're afraid that he's dangerous.
Yeah.
When he's introduced to the nephew, there's a point when he gets a car and he goes to take the nephew for a ride. And even watching it the second time, I was like, does he do something really bad to the kid here? No, he totally has a heart and he connects with this kid just the same way that he was connecting with young Makwa. And you hadn't got to it, but the big end of the first act moment for Makwa is choking the stripper. The big end of the first act moment for Tedo is going to the mother of the kid they killed.
Breaking down.
And breaking down on her porch, confessing to her in a moment that, like, as I'm talking about, I'm getting choked up.
Powerful.
His emotion. It's not only know if it's his best scene, but it is the most just wrenching. Oh God, what a great actor. Yeah. And what an incredibly powerful moment to end that first act before we set these two characters up against each other again, meeting each other again. And then what the fallout is from that, which is when Tedo decides, okay, well, after he's made his confession, he's going to come to California to visit. And that doesn't go too well.
And that's when, again, it feels a little bit like a Coen Brothers movie. Like, their confrontation, to me, feels very much like a No Country for Old Men moment, or like Miller's Crossing, like that kind of good noir where there's one gun between two people and like intense emotions between two people in a space where there's no one else. And it's just such an intense scene.
There's also a great funny line in that scene where Makwa's like, how'd you find me? He's like, I just looked for the fakest fucking Indian in the world.
Because he cannot believe where Michael's at. And like, that's what's so great about following Tedo around after you see where Makwa is. Because it's like where Tedo is such a compliment of where Makwa went. You know, like it really just like one character describes balances out the other. You know, like you need to learn how one is to get how the other one, like how they both deal with pain and deal with this tragedy of their past.
And you can't help but relate to, I mean, Tedo is the one who tried to help at every point, and he has suffered.
He's the one who suffered the most.
Because the world is wrong. The world is very wrong to Tedo. Yeah. The impulse is really not to spoil what happens in this scene, but I don't know how we can talk about the movie without saying what happens.
Yeah.
So big time spoiler stop if you haven't seen this film. Go find it on Stars. Looks like it's on Sling TV, Hulu Premium, Roku channel. It's there. Find it. Watch it. We're about to rob you of the experience. But if you're still with us, they have this showdown, and Tedo pulls a gun on Michael and shoots him, but wounds him, doesn't kill him. And again, just his performance so intense, the way he almost like. It's such an actory moment that it should turn you off. Like I have a gun and I'm not sure if I'm going to shoot this guy, and I want to and I can't, but I keep walking. She's so grounded in that scene, and then he puts the gun down because he's having a real emotional moment, and Michael takes care of the situation like a sociopath would. He gets the information he needs and then unloads the gun into his old friend. And the next thing we see, he's at the police station, and his lawyer's there with him, and they're making the case that it was a case of self-defense, which he has a pretty good case for because Tedo has a criminal record and Michael's a good, upstanding, rich guy citizen, a good Indian. The film, I don't think, ever says that, but the film is saying that constantly.
Yeah.
In terms of from this point on. And Michael, being a profound sociopath, knows this and is working this system. But in all of this, it starts to come out that there is now an investigation in Minnesota. And because of Tedo's confession, the police are now looking into Michael and the possibility, the fact that he was the killer of this kid many years ago. And so Michael, as now we're moving into the third act of the film, he has to go back to Minnesota and return to this place, this haunted place for himself. And this is where he goes to visit the mother of the kid in the hospital, the one that Teddo has confessed to.
It just meant...
And this was the scene in the movie. This was the moment in the movie where I was just sort of like, my eyes peeled back and I was like, okay, yeah, this is everything.
Yeah, it's an intense scene because he menaces her and totally tries to gaslight her, and just like really, it's like this. It's like a great performance from the guy who plays Makwa, Michael Greyeyes. Like the character switch just in that scene, just sort of the dance that character does is so great, and it starts with him kind of being like, "I didn't do it. This guy's lying," but then it turns to him being like, you know, you did this actually, like kind of makes it the mom's fault, and then kind of reveals that no, he totally did do it, and she shouldn't tell anybody. And it's like the way he does in just the one scene, the way he just changes sort of the story, and like the whole time just trying to convince her and himself in a way of the truth of the situation is so good. It's so good, and like you said, it's very much like that scene in Bad Lieutenant. It feels very much like, again, a scene from like a No Country for Old Men, just like very, like the way he is menacing is so terrifying, and the way that his brain is working, like you're watching his brain work through that scene of how he's trying to figure out how to kind of get out of this situation, how to talk out of this situation or whatever, is so it's really intense. Yeah.
And he has that line about how all the good Indians died fighting. We're the descendants of cowards. And, you know, it's like, it is such a noir statement that, like, as a Jewish person who knows like the survivor guilt recording of like, oh, well, the ones who survived the Holocaust were the ones who got out. And there's that same kind of feeling of like, no, on one hand, you want to have pride in the heroic thing of surviving, and another part of you has this recording that he gave voice to that the director gave voice to and this actor gave voice to in this scene. And I had just never seen that or thought of that in the context of Native Americans, because usually in film, it feels like the film is either being stupidly racist to Native American characters or being sort of like that, like the magical Negro trope, but like with the magical Native American, the wise, grounded, earth-speaking shaman type, and just I'd never seen the bleak nihilistic Native character in film like this before, and that scene and that monologue was just what catapulted it. That was the moment where I was just like, oh, I'm seeing something that is not even like, to even call it a native noir as I did is almost, it's just a noir film. It's a great noir film, but it is so steeped in that culture that it is. But what's great about it is in that scene, it stopped when it was at its most, that it stopped being that and started being very specifically a story about the nihilism of survival. It was so rich.
And I found
rich.
it really cool and surprising that in this third act, he doesn't go to visit. Like, you expected to kind of have that scene where he's going to go visit like the guy who beat him up as a kid or his mom or whatever, and like show them that he's better now or what, or stick it to them. Because I feel that scene would always be in a movie like this when someone leaves town because of something bad and then comes back. Mm-hmm. But that never happens. He really just does go to this town to deal with this problem, make the problem go away, and then leaves. There's no monkeying around. There's no like, oh, I'm going to go visit the spot of like, I think he visits like there's a part where it looks like he's visiting a grave, or he's in the woods, or you think he's visiting something, but then he's talking on his phone. Like there was a moment where I was like, oh, is he like going to where the kid was buried, or he's like walking on leaves, but then he's just like talking on his phone to like the lawyer or whatever, and he's just trying to like, or his wife, I don't remember. There's a moment where I thought it was gonna be the moment, but he's just on his cell phone talking.
Yeah, there's and then the way we see him get off from the crime, and the way that the cop who is investigating him reveals all of his prejudices about the reservation and the people on the reservation. In like, as with Tedo as an example of that, it's like, oh well, they're saying, oh well, that kid, it was probably suicide. That's usually what happens to when people die on the res. They're inclined to, and it's like you see Michael getting off because of the prejudice of this white guy once again, in that Chameleon Street way, using the prejudice to build himself up.
And he doesn't even act emotional to that statement. His lawyer does. His lawyer's just like, oh, geez. Like his white lawyer is just like, oh, God. Oh, that's so sad, to think about that. It only affects him emotionally. And I found that an interesting moment, too, to kind of like thematically talk about kind of the final part of the movie. Like not quite the last act, but like the last part, the conclusion. Like, because they talk about like, yeah, a lot of these people will leave the reservation and they'll go somewhere and they'll commit suicide. And then in a way, I feel like that's kind of what Makwa did when he went to California. Thematically, like you changed your name. Like Makwa doesn't exist anymore. Now you're this rich guy named Michael. And like maybe you have your little braid or whatever, but you're mostly living this sort of like white person life. Like this, like this rich white corporate world. And you killed all your emotions, and so you did commit suicide. You did leave and do that. You did exactly that.
And when he has the one moment that he could have connection, when he sees Tedo's sister, after he leaves the police station, he's about to go, he sees Tedo's sister. And
nothing. Just turns away.
Nothing. He is a
cold,
total noir, nihilistic.
And go on. And then it's just kind of the way the movie wraps up is not exactly how you think it's going to wrap up either, because you think maybe there's some feeling in him of all this, but then he kind of seems like, oh, maybe not. He went back to work. He's just talking to his wife about, but then there's this great part when he's like, I want to show you my bullet wound. It's like, it's kind of cool. Like it's healing up. It's fine. Like it's great. And he shows it to Kate Bosworth, and she looks at it and she has a really big reaction that neither of them were expecting. Like, oh God, oh, that's terrible. And then he's kind of like, you're right. That is really terrible. And has a kind of like the only emotion you've seen from him in the whole movie since the beginning, where he actually has a reaction to that. Like he kind of, in a way, understands that, like, yeah, this is like, you're not entirely a robot, I guess. That part was powerful.
And that's when we come back to the wraparound. We're back with the Ojibwe man with the smallpox. Now in a tent with, it seems like a woman, a native woman who's there with him, and maybe he's dying. We don't really know. It's very mysterious in terms of what's going on with the Ojibwe man. And it gives the film this context that is so just zooming, like seems like just zooming back in time and space. So it puts everything else that we've seen into this archetypal relief. And then we cut to, I think, also one of the most powerful, like it really builds to a truly powerful shot, some final moment in the film, where we see Makwa, he's just walking out to this beach, and he's just looking at the beach, and he falters for a moment, and as if his character feels the impact of everything, not just his story, but the Ojibwe man's story, like everything. And in that, it feels like that's my experience. That's the experience I need as an audience member. And the way it's portrayed is just a one wide shot from the back. We don't see his face. We don't have a big emotional moment. We just have this flinch. And he's been so solid and so stoic ever since he killed that kid, that flinch is so powerful to me. Did you notice that as well?
No, I didn't notice the flinch, but the ending is powerful.
Yeah. It's, well, there's a few things I guess we don't need to mention everything. There's even more in this film there's this bullet he's been carrying around that's a part of his whole, Michael's whole, I don't know, psychological makeup. Yeah, just an incredibly potent film. When you were watching it, do you know the moment that it really just came alive for you, or when you were watching it, were you right in?
I think it wasn't from the beginning, because I'm kind of watching it, going, okay, like this tough life in the past, and I'm waiting for like what's gonna happen. And I think it really was that, like, the way Makwa is Michael in those first moments of those very Chameleon Street type moments in the present day, and I was like, oh wow, okay. Because I just thought from the beginning, it seemed like I was just going to be up with these kids dealing with this thing. But then to go that far ahead and kind of that going from him in this kind of satirical kind of part of him, kind of how he's changed, and contrasting it with Teddo's. But like that whole middle, that second act is when I was like, oh, this movie's great. Like I totally get what this movie's doing, and I'm really into it now. And I'm really caught up in it emotionally. And I was until the very end. And just like this, turning it into a character study about this sociopath and this other guy who's had this hard life. Because like the way the movie deals with sort of the pain of the past and how it affects the present is just, it's really good. And I really liked how simple in a way the movie is. Like it's not a very long movie. I think it is just like 90 minutes around there. There's no fat. Mm-hmm. The movie, there's no wasted stuff. Like everything in this movie works for the theme. It all works together. But it's not the type of movie where everyone's speaking exposition all the time. Like it really is like you're just in these moments with these characters, and it's building to sort of these big themes and these big ideas. And I just think it's a very well made, tightly made movie. And I just hope, even though this movie stupidly didn't get any acclaim or attention, like this is like the problem with Hollywood, is they always want to try so hard to be making movies like Wild Indian, or wanting to make it, or saying they want to do more and be more inclusive and do all this stuff. And then when someone does make it, they don't embrace it. It goes nowhere. No one's saying anything about, like, this should be up for Oscars. This is why this is an Oscar thing. Like this movie, there's no other movie like this movie. Is there? I've never seen a movie like this movie. Like, what other movie is close to this? I don't know. It's like what movies are made by Native Americans that are like this, and this kind of story, and this way to hit on themes that maybe have been talked about in other movies about those people before, but in this way, and kind of using genre to kind of push your ideas forward, which is so much more interesting than just sort of like an Oscar-y drama. Just making it kind of in this world of noir and a little bit of mystery, and like that's just it's just so good, and it's just dumb that nobody knows about this movie.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of
Wild Indian and Dinner in America. How are people going to find these films?
Like they're like at least Wild Indian's on Stars, but Stars isn't like promoting it. It was never like pushed. And like this isn't on a lot of people's. I haven't seen this on anyone's best of lists. I haven't seen it winning any awards. You know, I'm just like looking to see like did it win anything at any. I mean, granted, it came out in this weird pandemic time, but like it won. It was nominated for Film Independent Spirit Awards, and that's cool. Screenplay, first feature, supporting male for Spencer, and best male lead for Greyeyes. So that's cool, and was up for a Gotham Award for outstanding lead, and then a bunch of film festivals. It won the only award it won. Palm Springs International Film Festival Directors to Watch for Lyle Mitchell Corbine Jr. So that's good on you, Palm Springs International Film Festival, for actually recognizing something of high quality like this.
If she still works there, the woman who, when I was very young, was my first kiss, is one of the programmers at Palm Springs International Film Festival. So good job, Michelle.
And this movie played at Sundance last year, and it was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize, but like it didn't get the hype out of Sundance as other movies did, I guess. And the same thing with Dinner America, that also came out of Sundance with a lot of like, okay, maybe at the time people liked it who watched it there at the festival, but it came out because it's in that way, it's that Chameleon Street thing of like, oh, we can't figure out how these people can make like Marvel movies, so we're not going to like hold them up and invite them to Hollywood and throw this big party for them. They're going to all have to work really hard again for their second movie, just as they did for their first movie. This is just the plight of like actual good filmmakers that have something different and interesting to say. And it's not that this movie doesn't even have famous people in it. It has Kate Bosworth and Jesse Eisenberg in there. So those are people that people know, and they could have used them kind of how, Red Box movies with Bruce Willis used the 5 minutes of whatever movie he's in that movie to make it seem like he's in it. You could have thrown them on the poster, try to get people to kind of get this movie to see it.
Well, their names are on the poster.
I know, but their pictures are, I don't know.
Their faces.
But I mean, that is how people will sell movies. They didn't even try to do that. Like, if they do anything to try to get this movie out there, because it's fucking great. It's really, really good. And now that we've,
I mean, it's no being the Ricardos.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but you know what? Though that's a movie people are going to forget about pretty quickly. Like the world has already forgotten about the last Sorkin movie. Whereas I feel this could be something that can sneak up. I think like this movie and Dinner in America are cool enough and edgy enough and outsider enough that like it can have a slow build that like I could totally see like in 20 years someone programming like something at a theater sort of like where I work and be like, here's a touchstone of a type of movie that like if you're doing like a noir thing or something, like this is one that's very stands out as a unique experience, a unique movie. I want to see more from Lyle Mitchell Corbine Jr. It's a long name and a short filmography. And I want to see this guy make a lot of stuff, because this is like for a first feature, this is amazing. Like it's so confidently made. Like this doesn't feel like the first time out. Like there's no fumbling in this. This is a solid movie.
Yeah, you said that there's nothing wasted in this movie, and at the same time, there are some very slow moments where things are just allowed to happen. It's like you said, that we don't have a lot of characters telling us what's going on. It shows us. When there's dialogue in this film, it's great, but it's so much of it is just behavior in silent moments that draws us into these characters. And within that, there is that sense of nothing wasted. And I don't know if I said this, but I don't think I did. I was just thinking of it, was when you watch the film the first time, when the murder happens, it seems like you almost miss it because it happens it's so perfunctory in the way it's shown. But you watch it the second time, the whole first part of the movie, you're just on pins and needles because you're like, oh shit, this is coming. Oh God, oh no, I remember this is coming. Oh no, it's a whole other emotional experience with this movie. I really recommend it. It really does open up on I will
totally watch this movie again. This is a movie that I feel would be rewarded with repeat viewings. Like the more you going back and knowing sort of what is behind everything and what's going to happen and like how the movie plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really... now that we've done this episode, I regret not giving this movie an Oscar. This should have been on my list. This should have been... I think it was just too fresh in my mind, but this is hands down one of the best movies of last year, across the board. It's really, really good. Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't quite get it into bad trip territory, but it does bring it up to a net territory, so that's good. And who knows, if we had shown this film to Jen and AJ, well, they might have also put it on their list. And that's
out of all the Noscar movies, this is the one that I'm going to be taking out to recommend to people. I feel this one needs the biggest push. And it's funny, last night, there's the first person I told at work, I was like, oh, I watched this movie, Wild Indian, it's so great. It's sort of like a Native American noir. And his response was, is it as good as Thunderheart? And I'm like, well, that also a great movie. We also covered this on our show. So we're on the right track. These movies.
I would, but to answer that question, it is the cinematic achievement of Thunderheart, Incident at Oglala is more impressive, but this is better than
I agree. I agree.
As a movie, it is hands down. It is
not to knock Thunderheart. Great movie. I love it. You love it.
Great,
but this movie is like truly there's something really important about this. It's really strong about this movie.
That's a great filmmaker telling an important story, but it's not a unique voice. This is a unique voice from a filmmaker that we need to hear more from.
Yeah.
I would like to see this filmmaker remake Thunderheart, although I wouldn't put that on him. I'd like to see this filmmaker just keep making films that challenge our idea of what Native American cinema is. And maybe it's just to be expected that a film like this is going to be a slow burn because it is blazing new territory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which probably, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm thinking blazing new territory is probably a metaphor that is not great to use in the context of the European invasion of the North Americas and the terror it's wrought. So let's just say it's an exciting new voice in film, and one that I'm glad to hear. You talk to a lot more people about movies, so I make the case to you so that you can make the case to the world.
Yep, and I am, and I will spread the word.
Radio 8 Ball.
Andras here. When I'm not co-hosting The World is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8 Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8 Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
One dream, one wish, one piece of mind. A podcast hosted by Nico White about One Piece by Ichiro Oda on Paper House Network. We'll see you every Monday.
Dear listener, if you are just discovering our podcast, you can find all of our episodes on our website at theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can also write to us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com or follow us on Instagram at theworldiswrongpodcast. And now, back to the show. I'm pretty excited about what we're going to be talking about next week. Another film. It's pretty much all we do is talk about films that the world is wrong about, that people should know more about, that we're excited about and inspired by. But one that I've been trying to get us to do for a while, it's finally here. We're doing our episode about Up Against Amanda.
Woo! Oh, man. That's a movie. That is a kind of movie. Different kind of movie than Wild Indian. Different kind of movie than Dinner America. Different than any kind of movie you've ever seen. It's a sneaky movie. You got to watch out. Up Against Amanda is going to be sneaking up behind you. And before you know it, it's there. I'm so excited for this episode.
You can find it where so many of the movies we cover can be found on Tubi. And we're going to be joined by my good friend and sometimes collaborator, Justin Freet, who turned me on to this film. And then I turned you on to it, Brian. It now haunts us in a way that is inexplicable unless you've seen it. And then next week we're gonna try and explain it. I know we're gonna be trying to get to the bottom of what it is about this film that is so, I don't know, hypnotic and intoxicating despite itself, or despite the production hurdles it must have faced. See it. I don't know if we can ruin it with spoilers, but you really won't appreciate our episode unless you watch it.
And stick with it. Like you want to fight it. Just let it take over. Let it wash over you.
Give it at least 15, 20
give
minutes.
Give it at least 90 minutes.
Just here's the thing. If you can just get through the credits, you'll be good. Which is like 30 minutes. But yes, check it out. It's a fantastic, weird, wonderful film. I have been in touch with the director, Michael Ritzy, and he has responded. We don't know, but we may have a conversation with him about this and his life in film, which just seems his own personal trail as a filmmaker is just as weird and compelling as this film. So
that's exciting.
So we may have sniffed out a hidden auteur for our listeners and supporters here at The World Is Wrong. So get ready for that. And we don't talk as much about the director's wall as we used to. We used to do it every week. But what are we up to? Are we going to be getting Rocky 3 soon?
Rocky 3? No.
Oh yeah, Godfather. 3,
Godfather 3 already out. When this is out, we're working on a Bram Stoker's Dracula. So we're in the 90s now. We're getting close to the end, and then we got to pick a new director. We're only got like 5 movies left. So, yeah.
Wait a second. Just to be clear, so when this comes out, Godfather 3 is going to be out, but Godfather 3 isn't already out yet for you and me. Did I miss an episode?
No, it's not out yet. But it's out when this is airing. Like it's not out. It's going to come out in like
got it.
2 days. Like we recorded it, so it'll be out by the weekend that we are recording this, which is not when this is now airing. So
okay, I didn't mean to get people confused. It's just I felt like did I miss out?
No, it's not. It's a long episode. It's as long as the movie, so AJ's taking some time to cut out all the hms and ha's. So
that's how much I treasure the director's wall. And if I feel like I missed an episode, I feel like there's something truly amiss in my life. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about Aliens 3.
No, Godfather 3.
Oh, sorry. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That's what it is now. Godfather 3. Okay. Hey, just, you don't need to ruin it, but are you pro Godfather 3?
We both are pro Godfather 3.
Excellent. Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
No, I watched it 4 times in the last month, so I'm deep into that movie and deep into my love of that movie. So, yeah.
Okay, one more question. What's the biggest surprise World Is Wrong aspect of, like, one thing? You don't want to give away the whole episode, but just as a teaser for our listeners.
Just looking at the hate that Sofia Coppola got in that movie in a different way. very much kind of in a way of how we talked about the Sinead O'Connor in our episode. Just sort of like she was sacrificed unjustly and dragged through the mud, and we are defending her in the episode when most people wanted to take her down for that movie.
Oh, and speaking of Sofia Coppola, while we're giving her some love, in the interview that I read with Lyle Mitchell Corbine Jr., he said that the film that was his cinematic awakening was Lost in Translation, the film that made him really realize what a film could be. So
that's great. Great movie.
Yeah.
A different tone than Wild Indian. Not the same type of world, but also a strong film language
about like that has patience for quiet moments, for behavior that is willing to just sort of stay with its characters and let them reveal themselves.
I think a lot of filmmakers are into that these days.
Yeah,
I'm into it. Yeah,
it's cheaper. It's cheaper just have everyone do things in one scene, and you just shoot that, and then instead of having to do all these extra takes. And,
exactly.
Who needs editors? Come on. The Academy.
The Oscars, they don't need it. We're done with them.
Sorry, I'm kidding, folks. I know. The only reason I have an antipathy towards editors is they've just ruined so many of my performances. Ouch! Damn! Could you stop putting your foot in your mouth, Andras? You count on these people. Anyway, no, editors are great. We love you. We love you. I'm an editor. I have to edit this stuff. I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
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 I feel your pain.
And you make me look good, so thank you.
It's easy to make you look good, Brian. You make me sound good every time you laugh at something I say that's not funny. And people in the audience are just like, why do I think Andras is funny? I can't think of one funny thing he's ever said. Well, that's it. Brian's pulling the same trick that our Noscar nominee David Nell as Chef Finway in Pig delivered. So
yeah.
Enough of us patting ourselves on the back. It's time for you to pat us on the back. Send us a complimentary email to contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can also send a critical email or a questioning email, but considering that we don't get any, why it'd be great if the ones we don't get are complimentary or complimentary. I don't know why I pronounced it that way. You can also find a page about every one of our episodes on our website at www.theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can reach out to us or just check us out and stalk us on Instagram at The World Is Wrong Podcast and on Twitter at World Is Wrong Pod. Get ready, get up to speed, watch Up Against Amanda, and prepare for our celebration of that film. And until next time, Brian, you know how it is living in this world. Wherever we are, the world is wrong, and it's almost always wrong about us. And you, all of our listeners, that's what I mean, us. We're all wrong, even though we're not.
Yo. How's your day off?
Got in a round of golf.
Yeah, that's good. How'd you shoot?
74.
So listen, we're gearing up to finalize the Velo numbers, and I realized I hadn't heard back from audit.
Yeah, I haven't been able to think with this on my mind. Can I get your opinion on something?
Yes, of course. Yeah, anything.
As a friend, no judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're friends.
Is this getting too long?
Oh, I don't know. How does it feel?
Feels long.
Oh, so cut it.
Start my brand around here.
Yes, you're right. It does. It checks all the right boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But is it too long, though?
You know, it seems like the appropriate length for that style of hair. I don't know. Listen, so the Velo deadline is Monday. I got Morgan and Vic working on it, but they're working from home. They're a little behind.
I think I'll trim it.
Okay.
Good talk.
Yeah, it was.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall.
examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.